You're stuck at home now in quarantine and you have broken your wrist and you kind of are in this place where you feel like maybe should we go into therapy, but it's probably not essential that you go to therapy. Broken your wrist a month ago, you've kind of been immobilized for 5 or 6 weeks. Like, what do you do now? Hi guys, I'm Julie. I'm an occupational therapist and I'm also a hand therapist. And during this crisis that we're in right now, I thought it would be useful to talk about some common diagnoses that we see as hand therapists. If you are someone in a position where you've hurt your hand or your upper arm and you can't get to a clinic because you are supposed to be quarantined, sheltering in place, whatever it is, this video might be helpful for you. If you haven't already, I made a part 1 to this video talking about what happens when you break your wrist and kind of the initial phases that happen where you would probably be going to therapy at that point or close to it, but now you can't go because you're stuck inside. So this is kind of a follow-up to that video. As always, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and please leave me video requests, especially if it relates to something occupational therapy, hand therapy wise. I love reading your comments and I get a lot of inspiration for videos, so please don't hesitate to do that. Also, as a little disclaimer, I am a hand therapist and I've been working for a number of years. However, I am not necessarily your hand therapist, and so I want you to take this advice with good sense and in conjunction with your medical provider. Hopefully, you know, the internet is not broken and you can still be contacting your doctor or your therapist either via telehealth or via email or through a hospital MyChart kind of service, which means that this is just to supplement and to maybe help you with some exercises if you forgot how to do something, or make you feel a little less alone and a bit more at ease during this very uncomfortable and confusing time. So this is something to supplement your actual plan of care. It's not there to replace it. Of course, I am not your personal therapist and I don't have all the information and all your medical history and everything. So I want you to just know that this information should be taken in conjunction with what you are already receiving from your healthcare provider. Okay, so where we left off, and if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it, we were talking about what happens when you are still immobilized in a cast or in a splint, and basically your fingers are free, your elbow is free, and your shoulder is free, but your wrist is still immobilized. So now we're at this phase where you have been given more permission to remove your splint, or we call it, the correct word is orthosis, and you're no longer wearing the cast. It's freedom. You feel so great because now you can wash your arm. You probably can sleep a little bit better, but you're still a little bit nervous about moving. A lot of people want to keep wearing the splint because they feel more secure, and they also like to use it as a deterrent for other people bashing into them. Well, newsflash, one pro of a pandemic is that you will probably have a lot fewer people wanting to bash into you, and you should not probably be on the subways if you're in New York like I am, or the bus, so you shouldn't have to worry about using your splint as a deterrent. So what I usually tell people is that at home, if you're sitting, if you're just kind of on your computer, you're just watching TV, and you have been told now to sort of wean off the splint, you should be taking it off because, you know, you can get too stiff if you wear it too much. It's a delicate balance. So if you anticipate, like I said in the previous video, that you might have to pick something up or you're cooking and you might forget, maybe put the splint on. But otherwise, if you're able to be mindful about it, just keep it off and just be sensible, you know? It's a good opportunity to use your other hand to do things, strengthens the brain neurochemistry because you're now using, it's almost like learning a new language. And I know it can be frustrating, but after a week or so, you'll be such a pro with your other hand, especially if it's a non-dominant hand. So a few things to remember in this phase that I'm going to briefly talk about. The one thing is swelling. The other one is your scar or incision if you've had surgery. If you didn't have surgery, you don't have to worry about that, which is great. And then the other one is movement and regaining your movement in a very sensible manner. So swelling, as we spoke about in the previous video as well, you want to make sure that your fingers stay as mobile as possible, and that's why you're doing those exercises even before the cast comes off. We also talk about elevation, so I always recommend to people to sleep lying down with kind of a pillow under their arm at night, just to allow that gradual slope for gravity to go down. The other thing that helps with swelling is movement, because you're actually pumping the fluid out of your hand. There's pumps and valves in your forearm that you need to be activating. That's why we recommend doing those tendon gliding exercises to make a fist, because it also pumps out the swelling. And then sometimes people like to use ice. I would also recommend that you be mindful about not carrying your hand kind of down for long periods of time, because the fluid will kind of flow there. So you want to keep your arm, I mean, we talk about hand over your heart, I don't know, or hand above your heart, I don't know if that's really realistic to walk around like this. Even just keeping it not like all the way down, making sure your elbow is not permanently bent like this. It needs to kind of be open, because imagine that the veins and the lymphatic system that drain all the fluid, it's kind of like a giant hose pipe. And with a hose pipe, if you had to fold it in half like this, the water can't come out. So the same kind of thing with your veins and your arteries and everything. For the fluid to flow, you need to have that arm at like a gentle position. Sometimes also your therapists will recommend sort of a compressive bandage or some kind of dressing to kind of help with the swelling. That's if it's more severe. And if that is something that you're experiencing, I would definitely contact them and see what options you can have. If there's something you can order online, if you're not able to go into the clinic, or maybe if you're seeing your doctor, considered an essential service, they can provide you with sort of a tubular bandage or stockinette or something. Then the scar, if now you've had everything removed and you can kind of treat the scar, let's assume that it is healed, your stitches have been removed, which usually happens anything from sort of day 10 would be kind of early, but 12, 14 days, you have the stitches removed. I would recommend that as long as everything is healed and closed, like a lot of distal radius fractures have surgery right over here, sometimes on the back, but typically on the front here, you want to be massaging very gently, sometimes with lotion if you want, something that doesn't react to your skin, just to kind of get everything moving. It's like layers of a cake. You kind of want to just move you want to move that scar so that it doesn't stick to any structures underneath. And again, consult with your therapist or your doctor that it is safe to do this. I would also recommend doing that, maybe I usually tell my patients 2 or 3 times a day for 3 or 4 minutes, just massaging and kind of moving things around so that you have a nice flat scar. If you notice that the scar is kind of bulking up and over scarring, which can sometimes be called a keloid or a hypertrophic scar, definitely take a picture of that, send it to your surgeon and see, or to your doctor, and see what they recommend. Then something that's super important is movement. So a lot of people, after they have a wrist fracture or any kind of break or injury, they're very nervous to move, and that's totally understandable. Your body is telling you, hey, I'm injured, don't move me. But what it doesn't realize is that if you don't move for a certain amount of time, you could get stuck and really struggle to move. Like a balance between moving too much and moving too little. So what we usually recommend for people, and as I said in the beginning, this video is really reinforcement for that, and your circumstances might be different, but you want to be moving your wrist in different directions so that you get the full range of motion. Our wrist is really an incredible joint because it moves kind of circumferentially like this, which is not really common in our body so much. And it can move side to side, we call this deviation. It flips over, moves like this. And this happens at the elbow joint and the wrist. And if the wrist can't do that and help the forearms kind of rotate, it's hard to do things like taking a tray out of an oven or opening a book. Think about taking a magazine or a book and kind of just going over the pages like that. It's a great exercise because it's very light and easy. Also taking a deck of cards and like flipping over the cards. That's also really helpful. Carrying something that's very flat, you need to be able to supinate is what we call it. And pronating is if you had to type or play the piano or something like that. So the wrist really does have a lot of very important functions, and you want to make sure that you're trying to get as close to restoring those functions as possible. And as I said in the previous video, and I know I reference it a lot, but so go back and watch it, I guess, but you can always check on the other side, the non-injured hand, what your normal, quote unquote normal is, or as close to what it was before, and it also helps your brain kind of visualize what you need to do. So I often ask people to do these exercises together at the same time. So if I was going to ask someone to kind of supinate and pronate, I would maybe ask them to do that with both hands. The other very important thing to do is what we would call flexion of the wrist and extension. And I think it's helpful to learn the terms that the therapists and the doctors will use, because then when they're speaking about it in the office or online, I guess, you will have an idea. So we want to restore flexion and extension, radial deviation and ulnar deviation, and supination and pronation. Those are really the ones that we're really focused on when it comes to the wrist. So along with your finger exercises, your elbow exercises, and your shoulder exercises, you're going to be doing those wrist ones once you have been cleared to do that from your doctor. Think about how you can gently use your wrist in everyday activities so that you reinforce those exercises. So, you know, when we're extending, if this is your dominant hand, this is something where you would write. We often get people to do something called a dart thrower's motion. So imagine that you're throwing a dart at a dartboard and it kind of goes backwards and release. And that gets through a nice range of motion that the wrist provides. It gives you some deviation to the side. It makes you extend. It also makes you radially deviate to the other side, and helps you like flex as well. So it's like a nice complicated motion that's sort of intuitive for us that will help. You could also pick up pieces of popcorn, put them in your mouth. The exercises that I recommend you do, and I would encourage you to do them again, just like the finger ones, every hour, every 2 hours. Don't feel overwhelmed, not while you're sleeping, and you're gonna do them sort of in a set of 10. If you feel comfortable, you can increase that to 3 sets of 10, but again, you're not overdoing it. If this is right after you've come out of the cast, we're not doing any strengthening, you're just working on the range of motion. And even if you just do that while you're waiting to be able to see a therapist, that's great. You know, we can always, I feel like you can regain the strength back naturally as time goes on, and with exercises obviously, but the priority after a distal radius fracture is to get your range of motion back as much as possible. Again, you're not forcing anything, you're not performing this until pain. Yes, there may be a little bit of discomfort because it's something that has been immobilized for a long time, and you know, something was broken in there and it is still healing, but you want to keep that in mind, that it shouldn't cause excruciating pain. And if you're doing exercises and you feel like you're overdoing them, contact your provider. The other thing is that, you know, if you overdo it, you can create sort of a tendonitis in other structures in your hand, and so you want to make sure that you're sticking to sort of the 10 repetitions every 1 or 2 hours. You're going through each range of motion, and you're slowly upgrading to 3 times 10 every hour. Okay, so to review, and you can go back and watch this video again if it's helpful, but you're going to be focusing on swelling your scar incision if you have one, and your range of motion. You're also going to be focusing on getting enough sleep, reducing stress, eating well, not overdoing any kind of like manual activity that you need to do, making sure that you're taking it easy because you are still healing. The other thing I just want to say quickly is that you need to manage your expectations of how long your recovery could take. Everyone is so different, but on average, and it depends on the severity of the injury, it depends on your surgery, it depends on so many things. But budget in your mind for a recovery to take between 6 to 12 months. And I know that sounds so long and you're like, what? But bear in mind, you're not going to be immobilized for 6 months. Even if the world was normal right now, you wouldn't be going to therapy for 6 months. You would probably be going for anything from 6 weeks, even less maybe, depending on who you are, to 3 months, maybe 4 months. And you know, that really just depends. Budget that it might take 6 months before you start to sort of feel totally normal again, maybe less. You know, we also discourage people from returning to sport before kind of 4 months, and you need your doctor's clearance before you do anything like that, especially contact sports like basketball or football, something like that. So I hope you have found this video helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. If anything I explained wasn't clear, I would be happy to clarify that for you in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, as I said, for more videos like this, and leave me topics that are something that you need to know more about, or if you've sustained an injury. I'm thinking of doing some topics around tendonitis because that's very common, and with regards to motherhood and babies, mommy tendonitis is something that we see a lot of. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to let me know, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!